Hi, I do hope you all know my name. I'm Anthony Colon. I'm going to talk about Chapter 11. It is by far one of the shortest chapters in the book, and it's packed with tons of knowledge for you to hear. My goal is to take the information and put it into an audible format. You can not only hear, but I hope you enjoy it as well. Also, make sure to keep the book by your side. I got it right here, as I will cite directly from the book, and also we'll be going over some of the enunciations in the French section. So I hope you enjoy that, and hopefully you'll jump in like Dora the Explorer. Now, I also put a couple sites, grabbed a couple sites alongside this, and I'm posting them in the information section, and hopefully this will help you understand some of the text a little bit better. I do hope you enjoy the lecture, and please tell me how you like it or don't like it in the comment section below. Now, the food service industry is one of the oldest establishments in the world. Analysts say that 20% of the spending in the food service industry is derived from travel and tourism. It is considered to be one of the three basic components of travel and tourism, alongside lodging and transportation. But it is also considered to be one of the most volatile, as it is the riskiest in regards to longevity. Many businesses in this industry have issues staying open due to many different factors, like the ones I posted in the article below. We will also be talking about more in depth about some of the issues later on. Today, aside from agriculture, restaurants provide more jobs than any other industry sector in the world. The food service industry has a very rich history too, as it can be dated back all the way to the Romans. The Romans had issued mileage intervals along their roads where you could stop, pick up food, rest, and pick up fresh horses. Marco Polo even cited this rich history in 13th century China, where they were a lot more advanced. They had fast food, taverns, hotels, and even tea houses serving barbecue and beverages. Sounds wonderful. But, moving forward into the future, 16th century England had a more commonplace approach set into motion known as ordinaries. Ordinaries were meals given to the people who stayed in their inns and taverns once a day. In 17th century England, they created men-only establishments where food and beverages were served in a more communal setting. But more importantly, in the 19th century, England, it became natural where men and women could dine separate from other individuals in a proper restaurant format, which is more commonly used today. Modern gastronomy, which is eating customs, and dining derive their roots from France. The word restaurant's origins actually comes from a French word that described food to have restorative or healing properties. France provided meals in cooking shops, which were solely meant to create takeout food, where people could grab that and dine outside. Then slowly but surely, they moved the tables inside and allowed people to dine on another level. Thus, those terms, cooking shops and takeout, came to fruition, and France became accredited with bringing modern dining to a new height. La Grande Taverne de Londres opened in 1782 in Paris. It was one of the first businesses to garner a large following for its food and wine. And in 1789 through 1799, the French Revolution began, causing chaos and disturbance throughout their country. With more issues pressing the country, people fled and spread their culture to places like England and even America. And as the ruling nobility lost their power, they lost their power chefs as well. And those chefs became entrepreneurs and cooks elsewhere. French restaurants first appeared in America in 1794 in Boston and in 1800 in New York. But the development of fine dining in America isn't exactly due to the French. The Delmonico brothers from Switzerland came to America to open up a pastry shop where they had baked goods, desserts, wine, and a bunch of other products. Their nephew, Lorenzo, which they had brought over, had brought even more to the table, and he had created a succession of upscale establishments throughout New York. Marie Antoine Carme and George Auguste Escoffier both reinvigorated French cuisine in the early 19th century. Together they created new cuisines, an orderly course of menus, and cooking techniques, which are widely used today. Now, here comes the fun part. If you would all open your books to page 298, where I would like to teach you a bit about some of the wordings of the French cuisine. Now, This is based off the 1903 all-time classic book, Le Guide Culinaire, which was written by Escoffier himself. I do almost guarantee that you've heard these words before, but it might not have been in a cooking context, but something else. Now, I also advise you to use them because they are wonderful when used correctly, and they make you sound very intellectual. The first word the book describes is a la carte, and that's the way it's said. It means items priced separately. For example, if you look at a menu, there'll be multiple items on a menu, and they'll each be priced separately. It's a pretty simple term. Airplanes use it a lot as well. Aperitif, which is small alcoholic drink served before a meal. Sometimes it can be a cocktail, and other times it can be a shot. A buffet, most people have heard this term before. It's food set out for easy access in formal service. In the main mall, we have a restaurant called Hometown Buffet. Perfect example. I mean, it has it in the name. And there are many other buffets around, probably near where you are. The chef de cuisine is the chief or master of the kitchen. A lot of the time they're referred to as the head chef, and they are not always referred to as chef de cuisine, except mainly in French restaurants. Now this next one is actually really hard to look at, but it's actually very easy to pronounce. Hors d'oeuvres, which are small appetizers you would get alongside a meal. The next term is maitre d'. As the head chef is the boss of the kitchen, the maitre d' is the boss of everything else. So she makes sure everyone's happy, everything's running well, and everything's all good. Now, the pièce de résistance is a term everyone's probably heard just once before. In the book, it's defined as a substantial dish or outstanding item in a meal. And it's usually used to define like a final item in a finale or a show or something of that nature. Like if I'm going to show you something and it's going to be like the last thing I show you or your last present you get, the pièce de résistance, and then like maybe smoke and fire and something. But it's meant to just be outstanding. Now I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here and go to one of the last terms highlighted because it mixes with this one. Table d'hôte is a complete meal of several courses offered at a fixed price. And the fixed price is in turn called the prefix. So the words table d'hôte has a prefix, and a prefix is to a table d'hôte. A puree is a mash or a thick soup. Now, it is also used as soup a lot of the time, but it's also used as an ingredient in many different types of meals. You can use it as a garnish, or you can use it even as a sauce. A sauté is fried, and a sauté is fried by tossing it in a pan. Although it is a French word, it is used in many other different styles of cooking, like Chinese and Korean. The soup du jour is a soup for every day of the week. Now you find these in certain restaurants where they try to add variety and make people come back on certain days for the popularity, and it also mixes things up every now and then. The final term, which isn't highlighted, it's most commonly used today, it is menu. It originates from the Latin root known as minutus, meaning reduced in size. The menu hosts every piece of food that a restaurant has to offer, whether that be a McDonald's, which has like the menu right in front of it, or a restaurant which has the whole open fold menu. Now, when I speak of a restaurant, successful restaurant, McDonald's might not be the first thing that pops into your head. But as of 2006, they had a record $22 billion in sales. It all started in 1954 when Ray Kroc, a traveling shake machine salesman, saw the McDonald's brothers had a profitable enterprise. He managed to get the McDonald's brothers to give him a franchise, and today they have 31,000 outlets across 100 different countries. The restaurant industry is huge. For the sales alone in the U.S. exceed $500 billion and employs 9% of the population. 47% of Americans will work in the food industry in their lifetime. Although the numbers for the industry seem simple, the average consumer is varied. Most people only eat nearby their house, and is only considered part of the travel and tourism sector if the customer is at least 50 miles away from home. So that means only 15 to 25% of the overall sales and food service industry can be considered from travel and tourism. They also vary when you go even more in depth, as quick service restaurants attribute 15% of their sales to travel and tourism in comparison to restaurants, a large-scale dining restaurants, where they have 30% of the revenue stream coming from travel and tourism. Although with dining restaurants you can see a large variation between the local and the local, rural, and urban restaurants. As local rural restaurants might have 100% reliance on their locals and 0% reliance on the travel and tourism, a restaurant in New York could have a 35% reliance on travel and tourism because they expect people to come from many different areas to pick up their food and to pay very expensive prices. Now, 48% of every dollar spent on food is spent outside of the house. With multi-earners residing in a house, the industry continues to the food service industry continues to rise and see positive growth. Multi-earners multi-earners help the growth for multiple reasons, because the bulk comes down to time. If someone has the choice between cooking a meal and ordering up a meal, they're probably going to order up a meal. The rise in multi-earners households is due to the female labor rates, and a decline in birth rate means couples have desire less children. Financial analysis have divided out restaurants into two major categories: full service and limited service restaurants. Full service restaurants offer tables and patrons and come to you for your meal, while limited service restaurants do not provide the table service and they make you pay up front. So a McDonald's will have you pay up front, and then a large service full service restaurant is going to have you set at the table and have you order there, and a bunch of things as it progresses. Now, full service restaurant will also cost you a pretty penny, as they offer things like steak, where limited service offer things like hamburgers and food on the go. Haute cuisine is a type of luxury class cooking and a high scale surrounding. The place that is a $100 burger is actually a good example. People pay for this, not only the burger, but they pay for the area as well. And that's a good example of haute cuisine. Franchising holds a lot of power in the food service industry. 3/4 of U.S. spending, of spending in the industry is spent in small businesses with less than 20 employees, most of which are known as franchises. McDonald's is a good example of this, as well as their franchising power makes them a lot of money after product standardization, which means minimizing the differences from one business to the next, economies of scale, which is the unit cost declining after their output increases, and the national promotion, which is a marketing campaign nationwide is done. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit more depth. Product standardization, it means from one area of the U.S. to the next. They're going to have the same burgers, the same fries. I mean, there might be a little bit of variances between them, but they're going to have mostly the same menu. Economies of scale is the unit cost. It declines as the output increases. So what that means is you have things that you're going to buy initially. You have the building that you have to pay for. You have the initial licensing. You have the equipment and machinery. But in the end, as you gain money, more money and more money, you're going to start paying these things off. And so that's going to gain you money. And the national promotion is simple. It's just the promotion that McDonald's does nationwide in order to garner more, more people looking at them, to create and capture customer value. These all make the food environment as close as one is to the next. Their assembly line methods are also streamlined as well because of this. Outback Steakhouse is a good example of what they do to create a good assembly line. As their prime costs, which is their expenses for food and labor, are only at 62% of their sales, which is a low for that business in that industry. So What that is you have prime cost, which is 62%. So prime cost is the expenses for food and labor. So you want to have your expenses for food and labor meeting your sales at 65%. Analysts agree that if it meets it at 65%, then it means your business is profitable. Them being at 62 means they're lower and they're creating more profitability. It is good to understand the differences between these franchises, between a franchise and a business. Now, Chili's, for example, owns their own business, so they have to deal with things like inflation rate and other issues that can occur on the micro level, but they will also go and reap more reward if it's there to be reaped. As franchisors, they are licensed out to hold the business, so they have to follow the rules and guidelines of the business and can be put on the short end when it comes to carrying something that they have to sell at a low price, and they in turn would have to lose profits on it. Like, for instance, in a Chili's, you wouldn't get them coming down with this certain type of meat you would have to carry, just because it would minimize the difference between one store to one business to the next. When in McDonald's, they would say you have to carry this burger because it's part of the franchise. So you could lose money on a burger because you have to carry it. And it would be the rules of the franchise. Now, one of the final concepts I would like to talk to you about is the food service industry. The reason there is such a high failure rate is due to the ego-driven properties instead of good business practices. Now, it is most common that business owners are not knowledgeable about finance, law, and marketing, and all those factors and problems can lead for a business to fail. One of the biggest things you can do in order to make your business successful, and this is going a little bit back and forth in the book, but it's just to make things flow a little bit nicer, is to understand the concepts of turnover, day part, rev pash, and contribution. Turnover is a hard concept to understand, but to simplify it, if you have 20 tables and you have 40 groups of people that are going to be coming in, what you would do is you would have 20 people come in at one time of the day, and then once those people flow out, you would clean up the tables and then have another 20 people coming in, literally turning over the tables, which would cause your turnover rate to be 2 times. Now, a day part is also may seem complicated, but it's actually just dividing the day into separate parts. So you have the morning, afternoon, night, and even something in between. Now, the day part goes along with turnover, because you might have a higher turnover rate during the prime time hours, like nighttime hours, in terms of the morning hours, because you don't have many people coming in. And the rev pash is even more into these concepts, because the rev pash is the revenue each seat per hour. In the morning you won't have a high revenue, but because in the nighttime you'll have turnover rate, so you'll have people coming in and out, you will have a higher revenue per seat. So because of that, you'll have a higher rev pash during certain times of the day. Now, contribution is one of the other big factors that you need to know, because this is really profitability. Contribution is an add-on to your profitability after you meet your costs. So once you meet your costs, once you meet total sales for the day that was expected in terms of being profitable, that's when you just get everyone else above that is going to be a contribution to your business. So it's literally contributing good things, and so that's a way to remember it. Contribution is actually contributing extra money that you didn't expect to have. So it's a good thing. Now, in total, I want you to understand that the concepts of the food and service industry are large, and a lot of them may seem confusing and may seem outright annoying, but the truth is they're really helpful to understanding tourism and travel, and even to understand business as a whole. I hope you enjoyed my whole speech, and I'm glad you participated. I do hope you have a great night or day, and I'll see you later.